My family abandoned me as a teenager because I was too ugly. Now they want my forgiveness. My parents used to be models in the most depressing way you can imagine, like ex-child stars, except they never made it. They had a few catalog jobs when they were young, did some small runway shows in random malls, and then the work dried up long before I was even born. They never got over it, and they talked about it every single day at the dinner table while staring at our faces like we were faulty products. My dad kept old magazines in a plastic box in the living room, and sometimes he would flip them open and point at blurry photos of himself with way too much pride for someone who does phone sex with the old man for extra cash on the weekends. And Mum, let's just say she used to do things Dad was never supposed to find out. Occasionally, she would say things like, "If social media existed back then, I would be huge now," while looking at my little sister like she was a winning lottery ticket and looking at me like she wanted a refund. When my sister Mila was born, they called her their second chance, and everyone in the family knew what that meant. I got the nickname Extended Backpack, some uncles would call me Extendo, which was a very nice way to say, this one will never book anything important, but maybe she can carry groceries. My family treated mirrors like religious objects, and my mom would move them so that Mila always got the best light, while I somehow kept ending up near the shoe rack. By the time I was 12, they had Mila in dance, acting, runway classes, and whatever cheap modeling workshops they could find, and I was in charge of filming her practice sessions on an old phone with a cracked screen. If I asked why I could not try a class too, my mom would give me this soft fake smile and say, "Sweetie, you know this industry is harsh. I do not want them to hurt your feelings more than life already has," which sounded like protection but felt like an insult wearing makeup. My dad liked to break it down like it was math, and he would say, "Casting directors look for balance. Mila has the right symmetry, and you have good personality, so you can support her with that," like I was some kind of emotional tripod. Our whole schedule was built around Mila's career, so weekends were photo shoots in random parking lots, cheap studio days, and Instagram lives that never got more than 20 viewers, while I held the reflector and tried not to exist too loudly. The older they got, the more desperate they seemed, and every time a casting email said no or just never replied, they got a little meaner at home, like the rejection bounced off their inbox and landed on my face. Comments about my looks started as small jokes like, "Do not make that expression, the lens will break," and slowly turned into serious rules about where I could stand, what angles I should avoid, and which family photos I should just sit out completely. When I hit 14, puberty was not kind to me at all, and my skin betrayed me. My mom came home with a plastic bag one day. "For you, honey," in a tone that made me wish I could just delete my entire face. Meanwhile, Mila got even prettier in their eyes, and they started calling her our little star, while I quietly became the older one, which is a cool title when you feel like unpaid security. Money was always tight because modeling classes are expensive, travel is expensive, and my parents refused to get regular jobs because they'd rather call themselves managers than, say, cashier at Foot Locker. Apart from their secret jobs, my dad did random photography gigs for anyone who would pay, and my mom helped local boutiques style shoots for basically free because she kept saying it was about exposure and connections, even though the only thing getting exposed was our bank account. Bills piled up, notices stacked on the kitchen counter, and the food in the fridge got sadder every month. But they never pulled Mila out of her classes. They just stopped buying me new clothes and told me to make it work. I got a part-time job at a grocery store bagging items after school, and I handed almost all of it to them for rent because I did not want us to get kicked out, even though they acted like I was just doing the bare minimum. At 16, I finally asked my mom why she was always so harsh about how I looked, and she sighed like I had personally ruined her day and said, "You got more of your father's features, and this industry does not reward that type. It is not your fault, but we have to be realistic, honey. You're kind of chopped." I remember standing there, holding a sponge over the sink and thinking, okay, so I am a failed copy of a failed model. Great, thanks. Mila heard this whole thing from the hallway and did not say anything. She just turned around and walked off. And that silence hurt in a different way because it told me whose side she was on without any words. By 17, the plan became very clear. My parents did not talk about our future anymore. They talked about Mila's future, and my name almost never fit into their sentences unless it was about chores or extra shifts. One night they had a loud argument after Mila got rejected from another casting call, and I heard my dad say, "We are wasting time in this town. No one big is here. We need to move where the agencies are." And my mom replied, "We cannot take dead weight. We barely afford food as it is." I went to bed that night with a weird feeling in my chest, like I was standing near the edge of something and no one was planning to warn me. 2 weeks later, I came home from school and the house was almost empty, which at first I thought was a robbery, until I noticed how neat everything was, like someone had packed slowly and carefully. There was a note on the kitchen table with my name on it, and for some reason they used a pink sticky note, like they were leaving a reminder to buy milk instead of dropping a bomb. The note said, "We moved to give Mila a real chance. This life is not for you, and you know that. You will be fine on your own because you are strong. Do not try to contact us. It will just make things harder." Then at the bottom in my mom's handwriting, there was one extra line. "This business is about beauty, and you have other skills. Focus on those instead." It was a very long way to say, "You are too ugly to invest in, and we've picked the better bet," without using those exact words, but it landed the same way in my head. I checked their rooms, all their clothes were gone, Mila's posters were stripped from the walls, the cheap family pictures that actually had me in them were missing, and even my dad's ugly magazine box was gone from the living room. I tried calling my mom first, and the number went straight to some robotic message saying the phone was not in service, and my dad's number did the same thing while Mila had blocked me on everything. When the silence finally sank in, I sat on the floor in the hallway with the note in my hand and stared at the empty picture hooks on the wall and cried harder than I ever have. I was truly alone. No one wanted me, not even my family. The landlord came by the next day with a polite fake smile and told me they had ended the lease early. He said I had 1 week to leave because he had already rented the unit to someone else and there was nothing he could do. I did not have any close relatives nearby, and I was not going to tell some random cousin, "Hey, my parents traded me in for a more photogenic child," so I told him I would figure it out and pretended I was not panicking inside. I crashed at my friend Zoe's place for 3 nights, but her parents made it clear they were not running a hostel, and they kept saying things like, "This is a tricky situation and we cannot get involved," which is parent code for "good luck out there, kid." With the little money I had, I rented the smallest storage unit in a sketchy facility, and I put my suitcase and backpack. It was basically a studio apartment, just a very hobo-ish one. At night, I would slip in when the staff was not looking, curl up on a thin blanket, and stare at the metal ceiling while listening to cars on the road outside and thinking about how all of this started because 2 failed models wanted a second season. I showered at the community center in the morning, went to school like everything was normal, and worked extra hours at the grocery store because I needed every single dollar to keep the storage unit paid and to buy basic food. Peanut butter sandwiches became my main meal, and I tried to laugh about it in my head by calling it budget bulking, but sometimes the joke did not land and I just felt tired. My manager at the store, a woman named Carla, started noticing how often I stayed late and how many shifts I grabbed, and one night she asked, "Do you have a safe place to stay right now because you look wiped out?" I froze for a second, then I lied and said, "Yeah, I am just studying a lot," but my voice did that shaky thing and she raised an eyebrow like she did not buy it at all. A week later, she pulled me into the tiny office in the back and said, "Look, you are a hard worker and I do not care about your drama, but I found a spare room in my cousin's place and she needs help with rent. If you show up and pay your part, you can stay there, no questions asked." That offer basically saved my life. Not only was it nicer, it was cheaper than the storage unit too. It was a small bedroom with peeling paint and a shaky window, but it still felt like a castle compared to sleeping on concrete. I kept the note from my parents folded in my wallet, not because I wanted to remember their words, but because I needed a physical reminder of how far they were willing to go to protect their little dream and how little they cared about the kid who did not fit their beauty standards. I did not know it yet, but that note was going to be the opening line of the story that finally made them crawl back years later pretending it had all been a misunderstanding. After I moved into that room and life slowly stopped feeling like a countdown. School still sucked, but at least I wasn't sleeping next to a mop bucket anymore, or having to listen to the crackheads outside going at it. I graduated a few months later, and no one from my family showed up. Everyone else had flowers, or balloons, or loud parents yelling their names, and I just had a wrinkled gown and a peanut butter sandwich in my bag. I kept telling myself it was fine, but when they called my name and no one clapped, pure silence and stares. I felt like food that arrived at the table, but no one ordered it. After graduation, I kept working at the grocery store full-time because I didn't have a plan, and honestly, I didn't even know what someone like me was allowed to dream about. My confidence was basically held together by duct-taped sarcasm and alcohol at that point. One slow shift at work, a customer asked if I could help her find a specific brand of cereal, and I made a dumb joke about cereal being like dating apps because the good choices are never in stock. Right. She laughed harder than expected and said, "You are funny. Are you always like this?" I shrugged and said, "Yeah, unfortunately." She told me she was a comedy podcast host and said I should try open mic one night. I thought she was joking, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to embarrass myself in public for you instead of doing it quietly like usual." But she wrote the address on her receipt and told me to show up anyway. I stared at that crumpled receipt for 3 days before I finally went. The place was small, smelled like beer and old carpet, and the stage looked like someone stapled a curtain to a broom. My hands were shaking so much I almost left, but then someone called my name and my body just walked up there before my brain could stop it. I talked about my parents, the extended backpack nickname, the pink sticky note, and how modeling culture ruined my entire bloodline. People laughed. Not pity laughs, real laughs. For the first time in my life, being me wasn't something I had to apologize for. After the show, the host asked if I wanted to come back next week, and that was the first moment I realized I might be allowed to want things. I started doing open mics every week, then twice a week, then 3. People started recognizing me around town, and a small following grew online because someone clipped one of my sets and posted it. The clip went viral enough that suddenly I had strangers commenting things like, "She's hilarious!" I was even getting thirst traps in my DMs. We'll talk about that later, though. Focus on the story. By the time I was 21, I was doing paid shows. By 23, I was doing comedy full-time. People loved the trauma jokes, and I didn't know whether to call that healing or concerning, but money was money, so I rolled with it. At 26, I recorded my first special in a small venue, and a streaming platform picked it up. It got way more attention than I expected. My DMs filled up with people saying the story reminded them of their own messed up families, and suddenly I wasn't some abandoned kid sleeping in a storage unit anymore. I was someone who survived. Around that time, I also did a long interview on a popular podcast, and that episode exploded online. People stitched it, quoted it, turned my trauma into TikTok sounds, which was weird but also kind of funny. One night I opened my email expecting brand stuff or show requests, and instead I saw a name I never thought I would see again. My mother. Subject line said, "We saw your interview." Ew, why are you actually emailing me? I was more disgusted than shocked, cuz I knew if they were still alive, they were going to reach out eventually. I mean, that's what happens on TV, right? But actually seeing it was so gross. The message itself was short. She said they had moved back to our old state because Mila's modeling career slowed down and they wanted to reconnect as a family. She also wrote, "We miss you and regret things. Sometimes parents make hard decisions." There was no apology, just a whole bunch of bullshit. An hour later, another email came in. This one from my dad. His was even shorter and something more annoying. He wrote, "We always knew you'd find your place. Mila told us we should reach out." Then he added, "We should talk about a family documentary. People love comeback stories." I sat there staring at my screen and I started laughing because it was either laugh or throw my laptop out the window. They did not want me. They wanted content. I didn't reply. A week passed and then I got a third message. This time it was from Mila. She wrote, "Hey, do you hate us? Can we meet? Things are complicated." That message felt different. Not better, just different. I typed, deleted, retyped, deleted again, and finally ended up sending where? She suggested a cafe downtown, neutral space, public, smart. The day of the meetup, I got there early and ordered iced coffee because I wanted something to hold so I didn't look like I wanted to run away. Mila walked in 10 minutes late wearing sunglasses indoors. I mean, of course she would. She sat, tilted the glasses down a bit, and stared at me for a few seconds. Then she said, "You look different." I said, "So do you. Yours indoor shades look expensive." She didn't laugh. Mom and Dad wanted to talk to me because they were going through a lot. I asked what a lot meant. She hesitated, then she said, "Dad owes money, and Mom lost her styling clients, and I might be done modeling." I waited because I knew there was more. She took a deep breath and said it fast like ripping tape. Dad said, "Maybe you could help us get exposure, or money, or something." I blinked at her twice. Then I said, "So you guys didn't come back for me. You came back because your life fell apart." She didn't deny it. She just whispered, "We didn't think you would actually make it." Crazy thing to say to someone you're asking for help, but honestly, that was the first honest thing any of them ever said to me. I leaned back in my chair and nodded slowly because everything finally made sense. She looked nervous and asked, "So, will you help us?" I took a sip of my drink because silence is powerful when someone expects you to fill it. Then I said, "No." Her eyes widened like no one had ever said that word to her before. She tried again. Not even to talk, not even to hear their side. I shook my head. I said, "They had their chance when I was 17, now they can watch the show like everyone else." I picked up my bag and stood. Before I left, I said, "Tell Mom and Dad they were right about one thing. I did figure it out." Then I walked out, and it felt better than any applause I'd ever got on stage. She yelled after me, "We won't stop until you help us." I just ignored her and kept moving. After I walked out of that coffee shop, I felt weirdly calm, like my body finally understood nothing was going to change, and I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I went home, made pasta, and watched dumb videos because that felt easier than thinking about any of it. The next morning, everything blew up online. Someone sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post my mom made, and it looked like one of those sad chain messages older people write when they want pity. She wrote a long message about having a lost daughter who became famous and was mentally unstable and refusing to connect with her loving family. She left out the part where she literally abandoned me and I had to rummage through trash some nights just to get a meal. People were commenting things like, "Stay strong, mama," and "Kids today are ungrateful," and I just stared at my phone thinking, wow, her stomach is really full of lies. Then my dad posted a selfie of him crying and captioned it, "Pray for us." Grown-ass man, by the way. At first I ignored it because I didn't want to play tug-of-war with delusional people on Facebook, but then she posted childhood photos of me and Mila, and people started figuring out what famous daughter she was talking about was. The caption said she used to be such a sweet girl before she changed. It was so funny because in the picture, Mila looked like a tiny Disney princess and I looked like Dobby. People online were eating the whole thing up because who doesn't love drama? After that, strangers started messaging me saying I was cruel and selfish and fame changed me. Bitch, I wasn't even that famous. One lady sent a voice note telling me God wouldn't forgive girls who disrespect their parents, and I almost choked on my Hello Kitty cereal. I didn't respond to any of them, but I kept the messages as proof because I already knew my parents were the type to cry victim and then manipulate the story until everyone forgot what actually happened. Then I got a call from an unknown number, and normally I would have ignored it, but something told me to answer. It was Mila. Her voice sounded shaky and unsure, like she wasn't sure if she should be calling me. He said they're freaking out because the attention isn't working the way they planned. Apparently, comments turned against them after someone found receipts from an old modeling forum where my mom had complained about having an unattractive child and asked if she could return the genetics. People online started dragging them so hard I almost felt bad, but not bad enough to help. Mila said she was tired and she didn't want to defend them anymore because she finally understood how messed up things had been back then. She told me she always knew something wasn't right when they left me, but she was scared if she said anything, she would lose her spot as the favorite. Hearing her say it out loud didn't fix anything, but it made something in my chest loosen because someone was finally taking a little bit of accountability. She asked for forgiveness, and honestly, hearing her cry brought tears to my eyes. She was still my sister after all. Then she opened her big, fat, plump, Botox blotched lips and ruined everything. "We really need your help," she said. "We're being sued for unpaid contracts. This is our family legacy." I laughed so hard I almost choked because the only legacy they passed down was insecurity and debt. She stayed quiet for a bit and then asked if she could see me. We met at a small park nearby because that felt safer than letting her know where I lived. She showed up wearing sweatpants and no makeup, which shocked me because our parents used to treat going outside without makeup like a crime. She apologized again, and this time it didn't sound rehearsed. She said she wanted to build her own life without them and she didn't want to lose her only sibling. I didn't say yes right away because I wasn't going to hand out forgiveness like a coupon, but I told her she could text me sometimes and we could start slow. Before we left, she said something I wasn't expecting. She said Mom and Dad were planning to show up at my next work event because they thought embarrassing me would push me into helping them. That was the first time I felt angry in weeks because it showed how little they understood who I was now. So I hired security for that event and made sure they had a printed photo of my parents like it was a nightclub blacklist. When my parents tried entering, security blocked them in front of at least 50 people and someone recorded it. The video went viral and they went into hiding. They haven't contacted me since. The online drama died down and the message has stopped. My life finally felt quiet again. Mila and I still talk sometimes. It's weird and slow and not perfect, but at least it's real. I didn't forgive my parents, and honestly I don't think I ever will. Sometimes I still think about the sticky note they left when they moved, and I keep it only as proof of where I came from and where I don't plan on returning to. I'm not angry anymore, just done. And being done feels better than revenge ever could. My family sold my bedroom on Facebook Marketplace while I was still sleeping in it. I still live at home because rent in the city is completely insane right now. I'm talking $2,000 for a place with mold and a landlord who texts you at midnight. So yeah, I stayed with my family and it wasn't ideal, but it was supposed to be temporary. My mom got really into Facebook Marketplace about 3 months ago and it started off pretty normal. She sold some old kitchen chairs and a lamp that didn't work anymore and she was so proud of herself. She kept saying things like, "I'm basically running a business now." And my dad would just nod because he learned a long time ago not to argue. My sister got into it too because she copies everything my mom does. And they started going through the house looking for stuff to sell. At first it was fine because they were getting rid of actual junk that nobody wanted anyway. But then my mom started looking at things that we were still using and asking if we really needed them, which was a red flag I should have paid attention to. One night, I went to bed early because I had been up late the night before finishing a project for work. I fell asleep around 9, which is super early for me, but I was completely exhausted and didn't even hear my phone going off. I woke up at 3 in the morning because I heard this weird smacking sound against my wall, and it kept happening over and over. I thought maybe a tree branch was hitting the house or something, but then I heard whispering, and I realized someone was in my room. I sat up and turned on my lamp, and my mom and sister were standing there with a tape measure and my mom's phone. They both froze like they got caught doing something illegal, and my sister was holding the tape measure against my wall. My mom had her phone up like she was taking pictures, and I just stared at them because I couldn't even process what was happening. I asked them what they were doing, and my mom said, "Oh, you're awake." Like that was the weird part, and not the fact that they were in my room at 3 in the morning. My sister said they were just taking some measurements, and I asked why they would need to do that while I was sleeping. My mom said they didn't want to bother me during the day, and I told her that bothering me at 3 in the morning was somehow worse. Then I heard my sister whisper to my mom that they needed to find the right angle so it didn't look depressing. I asked what that meant, and my mom said they were staging the guest room for photos, and I reminded her that this was my bedroom and not a guest room. My sister said I didn't really use the space aesthetically, and I had no idea what that was supposed to mean. I told them to get out, and they finally left, but my mom said we would talk about it in the morning. I didn't go back to sleep because I was too confused and annoyed, and I kept thinking about what my sister said about the right angle. The next morning, I went downstairs, and my mom was making coffee like nothing happened, and I asked her what was going on. So they were just brainstorming ideas for redecorating, and I told her that didn't explain why they were measuring my room at 3 in the morning. My sister came down, and she had her phone out, and she was scrolling through something and smiling to herself. I asked if I could see what she was looking at, and she said no and put her phone away really fast. My mom changed the subject and said I should think about what I actually needed in my room because it was too cluttered. I told her my room was fine, and she said that was a matter of opinion, and then she left to go run errands. I had a weird feeling about the whole thing, but I didn't know what to do, so I just went back upstairs. A few days went by and nothing else happened, so I thought maybe they dropped whatever weird idea they had. Then I woke up one morning, and there were 2 people standing in my room just staring at me, and I screamed because I thought someone broke in. The guy said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know anyone was in here," and the woman next to him asked if the mattress came with it or if it was sold separately. I asked who they were and what they were talking about, and the guy said they were here to look at the guest suite they saw on Facebook Marketplace. I told them this wasn't a guest suite and it was my bedroom, and they looked confused and said my mom told them to come upstairs and check it out. I grabbed my phone and pulled up Facebook Marketplace and searched my mom's name, and sure enough, there was a listing for a lightly used guest suite with photos of my room. The listing said it included a bed, a desk, a dresser, and a nightstand, and they were asking $800 for everything. The photos were taken from angles that made it look like no one lived there, but you could still see some of my stuff in the background if you looked close enough. I told the couple they needed to leave, and they got really awkward and said they drove an hour to get here, and I told them that wasn't my problem. The woman said they already sent a deposit, and I said they needed to take that up with my mom because I hadn't agreed to any of this. They finally left, and I went downstairs, and my mom was in the kitchen talking to my sister, and I asked her what she was thinking. She said she didn't think anyone would actually want to buy it, and she just listed it to see if there was interest, and I told her that didn't make it okay. My sister said I was overreacting and that it wasn't a big deal because we could just take the listing down, and I said it was already too late because people were showing up at the house. My mom said the couple already paid a deposit and it would be rude to back out now, and I asked her if she was serious right now. She said I could just sleep on the couch for a few days until I figured out another arrangement, and I told her I wasn't giving up my bed. My sister said I was being selfish and that they were trying to make some extra money, and I asked why they couldn't sell their own stuff instead of mine. My mom said my stuff was more marketable, and I told her that was the worst excuse I'd ever heard, and I wasn't moving out of my room. The next day I woke up and my desk was gone, and I found it listed on Facebook Marketplace with a sold tag on it. I went downstairs and my mom said someone came to pick it up that morning, and I asked why she didn't wake me up, and she said I looked tired. I told her she couldn't just sell my furniture without asking, and she said technically it was her furniture because it was her house. My sister was sitting on the couch, and she said the money was going towards something important, and I asked what could possibly be that important. She said she had some expenses she needed to take care of, and I asked what kind of expenses, and she just looked at my mom. My mom said it wasn't my business, and I told her it was absolutely my business if they were selling my stuff to pay for it. I asked my sister directly what the money was for, and she said she had some medical bills, and I asked what kind of medical bills. She got really defensive and said it was private, and I told her nothing was private anymore since they were selling my bedroom to pay for it. My mom said my sister had a procedure done a few months ago, and they were still paying it off, and I asked what kind of procedure. My sister finally said she got a BBL, and it wasn't a healthy weight gain like she'd been saying. I asked if she was serious because honestly her doctor did a good job, you almost couldn't tell. But that's besides the point. She said she needed it for her career, and I asked what career because as far as I knew, she didn't have one. She said she was building her social media presence and she needed to look a certain way to get brand deals, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked how much the surgery cost, and my mom said it was around $12,000, and I asked why they would agree to that. My mom said my sister had a plan to pay it back, and I asked what the plan was, and my sister said she was going to be an influencer. I started laughing because I thought she was joking, but she got really mad and said I never supported her, and I told her I wasn't going to support something this stupid. She said she already had a few thousand followers, and I looked at her Instagram, and she had like 2,000 followers, and most of them seemed like bots. I told her that wasn't enough to make money, and she said she just needed more time and better content, and that's why she needed the surgery. I asked how that was supposed to help her become an influencer. She said people don't follow ugly girls, and I told her that was the saddest thing I'd ever heard her say. My mom told me to stop being mean, and I said I wasn't being mean, I was being honest, and they were throwing money away on something that wasn't going to work. My sister started crying and said I was jealous because I didn't have any goals, and I told her my goal was to not be in debt for a nose job. My mom said they were going to pay off the debt with the money from selling my furniture, and I told her that was insane. I asked how much they made so far, and my mom said they got about $1,500, and I asked how they planned to make up the rest. She said they were going to keep selling things, and I realized they weren't going to stop until they sold everything in my room. I told them I was moving out, and my mom said I was being dramatic, and I said I wasn't going to stay somewhere that treated me like I didn't matter. My sister said I was being selfish again, and I told her she was the selfish one for putting herself in debt and expecting everyone else to fix it. I started packing my stuff that day, and my mom kept trying to talk me out of it, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. I stayed with a friend for a few days, and then I found a room to rent that was cheaper than I expected, and I moved in the next week. I didn't talk to my mom or sister for a while because I was still really angry and I needed space to figure out how I felt. Then one night I was scrolling through social media and I decided to post the whole story because I needed to vent and I thought maybe a few people would relate. I wrote everything out exactly how it happened and I posted it on Reddit and I didn't think it would go anywhere. I woke up the next morning and my post had like 50,000 upvotes and hundreds of comments, and people were telling me to post it on other platforms. I screenshotted the post and put it on Twitter and TikTok, and within a few hours it was everywhere and people were sharing it like crazy. The TikTok version got like 3 million views in 2 days and people kept stitching it and reacting to it, and I couldn't believe it was blowing up this much. My sister called me and she was screaming about how I embarrassed the family, and I told her she embarrassed herself by getting a BBL. She said people were messaging her and making fun of her, and I told her that's what happens when you do ridiculous things and expect everyone to be okay with it. My mom called me after that and she said I needed to take the post down because people were being mean, and I said I wasn't taking it down. She said people were showing up at the house asking if things were for sale because they thought everything was on Facebook Marketplace, and I started laughing. She said it wasn't funny, and I told her it was exactly what she deserved for selling my stuff without asking. A few days later, my mom called again, and she sounded really stressed, and she said people wouldn't stop coming to the house and ringing the doorbell. She said someone asked if they could buy the couch, and another person asked about the car in the driveway, and she didn't know how to make it stop. I told her maybe she should take down all her Facebook Marketplace listings, and she said she already did, but and it had the address and photos of the outside of the house, and it looked completely real. I told my mom about it and she freaked out and said she didn't know how to report it, and I told her to figure it out because I wasn't helping. My sister posted a video on TikTok talking about how I ruined her life, and she was crying and saying I was jealous of her and trying to sabotage her influencer career. The video got a lot of views, but not for the reason she wanted, because people were making fun of her in the comments and calling her delusional. Someone commented that she had 2,000 bot followers and she'd never make it as an influencer, and she deleted the video an hour later. She called me again. She was crying for real this time, and she said everyone was laughing at her, and I told her that's what happens when you make everything about yourself. She said I was supposed to be on her side, and I told her I would have been if she didn't help sell my bedroom to pay for her surgery. She said she didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I told her that was the problem because she never thought about how her choices affected other people. My mom tried to get me to come back home and talk things out, but I told her I didn't want to, and I was done pretending like everything was fine. She said I was being too harsh, and I told her she crossed the line when she sold my stuff, and there was no coming back from that. I blocked my sister on everything because she kept trying to message me and blame me for her failed influencer dreams, and I didn't want to deal with it. My mom still texts me sometimes asking if I'm okay, and I usually don't respond because I don't know what to say to her. The fake listing eventually got taken down, but my mom said people still show up sometimes because they think the house is for sale, and she has to explain that it's not. My sister's Instagram is still up, but she hasn't posted anything in weeks, and her follower count went down because people unfollowed her after the drama. I saw her comment on someone else's post the other day, and she was trying to promote herself, but no one responded, and it was honestly kind of sad. My mom sent me a long text a few weeks ago saying she was sorry, and she didn't realize how much it would hurt me, and she wished she could take it back. I didn't respond because I didn't think an apology fixed anything, and I was still mad about the whole situation. My friend asked if I was ever going to forgive them, and I said maybe one day, but not anytime soon because I needed them to understand what they did was wrong. I don't think they get it though because my sister still posts things on social media about how hard her life is and how no one supports her. She never mentions the surgery or the debt or the fact that she helped sell my bedroom, and I don't think she ever will because that would mean admitting she messed up. My mom keeps trying to act like everything is normal, and she sends me pictures of food she makes and asks if I want to come over for dinner. I don't go because I know it would just be awkward, and I don't want to sit there pretending like nothing happened. The story is still floating around online, and sometimes people recognize my username and ask if I'm the person whose family sold their bedroom, and I always say yes. It's weird being known for something like that, but it's also kind of satisfying because people always say I did the right thing by moving out and cutting them off. I don't know if I'll ever go back home or if things will get better, but right now I'm okay with keeping my distance. My sister never became an influencer, and I don't think she ever will because she doesn't understand that people can see through the fake stuff. She's still in debt, and my mom is still trying to help her pay it off, and I don't feel bad about it because they made their choices. I'm doing fine now, and I like my new place, and I don't have to worry about waking up to strangers in my room asking if my bed is for sale. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I didn't post the story, and I realize nothing would have changed because I didn't think they did anything wrong. Posting it online was the only way to make them see how messed up it was, and even then, I don't think they fully get it. My mom still lists things on Facebook Marketplace, but she doesn't sell as much anymore because people in the area know about the drama and think she's weird. My sister tried to rebrand herself online and start fresh, but it didn't work because people kept bringing up the bedroom story and she couldn't escape it. I don't feel guilty about any of it because they brought it on themselves, and I was just telling the truth about what happened. I haven't been back to the house in months, and I don't plan on going back anytime soon because I don't miss it. My mom asked if I would come home for the holidays, and I said no, and she sounded sad, but I didn't change my mind. My sister sent me a message a few days ago saying she missed me, and I didn't respond because I don't believe her. I think she just misses having someone around who she could blame for her problems, and I'm not going to be that person anymore. The whole thing was insane, and I still can't believe it happened, but I'm glad I got out when I did. I'm never going back, and I'm okay with that because I finally feel like I'm living my own life instead of just existing in theirs.